Title of my message is Scattered, ? Step Up. You see, we have been looking at this book of Acts. We have been really looking at what the early church was all about, what the priorities were in their lives. And we've seen very clearly the gospel, the message of Jesus Christ and what was accomplished on the cross, his death there and his resurrection, and how it was radically impacting lives. And I look today at the church, especially at the church in this nation, afforded the freedom that we have. And I wonder, how are we impacting our world? Reminds me of a story that I read the other day about a baby camel that asked and said, "Mom, why do I have these huge three-toed feet?" And the mom said, "To help you stay on top of the soft sand while trekking across the desert." "And why the long eyelashes?" he said. Mom said, "To keep the sand out of your eyes on the trips through the desert." "Well, Mom, why the humps?" "Sweetheart, to store water for the long treks across the barren desert." And so the baby camel considered and pondered these things, and then he said, "That's great, Mom. We have huge feet to stop us from sinking, long eyelashes to keep sand out of our eyes, and humps to store water. But Mom," "Yes, son," she said, "why are we in the zoo?" That's a good question for all of us as Christians to consider. If we have been given all the resources we need to carry the message of the gospel far and wide, if we are completely equipped to fulfill the Great Commission, why is it that very often we keep it within the four walls of the churches? You see, the gospel isn't simply something we come to church to hear. It's something that we are to go from church to tell. That was the point that was on the Lord's mind when he preached his Sermon on the Mount, and he compared the church to a bowl of salt. He said, "You are the salt of the earth, but if salt loses its flavor, how shall it be seasoned? It is then good for nothing but to be thrown out and trampled underfoot by men." Salt really can't fulfill its purpose, can it? Or do any good if it remains in the shaker? We're called to be fishers of men, Jesus said. But if we just sit and watch shows on fishing, how are you going to ever be fishers of men? You're only fishers of men in theory. You never experience the reality. You see, God wants us to be those who are getting this message out to the world around us. Here in Acts chapter 11, and did I tell you to turn there already? Go ahead. You turn there. Where we left off last time together. It's been a long uphill battle to bring the Gentiles into the kingdom. You remember the prejudice that we looked at the last couple of weeks. But now things are moving. The kingdom of priests, the church, is finally, getting it. They understand it. It had taken some time. And listen, you don't see this in the text because you don't know the time span between Pentecost and when the church was birthed and the text where we are at presently. But the time span is approximately 7 years from the day of Pentecost. It took these guys some time. And God, of course, was preparing them all the time through the apostles there in Jerusalem. You see, they were laying the groundwork. They were teaching doctrine so that when they went out from there to preach the message of the gospel to tell them who Jesus is and what that all means. You see, they had to be prepared. So some time has passed. But they're now headed in the right direction. And apart from a few minor setbacks, the church has become impactful. As now Jew and Gentile are all being welcomed into the kingdom. And so we see here that the preaching of the gospel is continuing its process of being spread out into the world. It says there that in verse 19, where we left off last time, now those who were scattered after the persecution that arose over Stephen traveled as far as Phoenicia, Cyprus, and Antioch, preaching the word to no one but the Jews only. But some of them were men from Cyprus and Cyrene, who, when they had come to Antioch, spoke to the Hellenists, preaching the Lord Jesus. And the hand of the Lord was with them. And a great number believed and turned to the Lord. And then the news of these things came to the ears of the church in Jerusalem. And they sent out Barnabas to go as far as Antioch. And when he came, he had seen the grace of God and was glad and encouraged them all that with purpose of heart that they should continue with the Lord. What a great scene we have here. You see, we have some going and preaching to the Jews, but we have some as well. And you know what? These weren't apostles. We have some, the results of being scattered. Okay, you scattered? What do you do when you're scattered? Do what these guys did. What'd they do? Hey, man, they said, listen, we're under persecution. We're being scattered. So we're going to go out preaching. We're going to go out sharing the gospel. God's got a purpose and a plan in this. And everywhere we go, no matter where we go, we're going to tell them about Jesus. We're going to preach the message of the cross. That's where these people lived. Persecution brought tremendous impact, you see, on the world. It didn't kill the church or hinder the church or destroy the church and its message. It actually furthered the church and its message. And I love the fact that, well, up to this point, it's been confined pretty much, with a few exceptions, to the apostles and the leaders that were sharing the gospel. But I love that we have here that these that were going to the Gentiles, some of the men, it says, but some of the men, we don't know who these men were. We just know where they're from. We know there are some from Cyprus. We know there were some from Cyrene. And they came to this city called Antioch, and guess what they started to do? Just preach the gospel. You see, men who just hung out with these apostles, who had done life, who had seen and heard, you see, the way they behaved and what they did and what they said, guess what? You reproduce spiritually after your own kind. They were sharing the gospel, the apostles, so these who were gone out from them, they also shared the gospel. They also spoke of the new life that was available to those that would give their lives to Jesus Christ. And it says, the results, a great number believed and turned to the Lord. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? The apostles had done their job. They had trained these laborers, these men, effectively. I want for a moment to consider now the city to which the Lord led these men. It said here that the name of the city was Antioch. Antioch was the third most popular and prominent city at the time in the Roman Empire. A population was estimated to be approximately 500,000 people. It's surpassed only by Rome and Alexandria. It was a Mediterranean doorway along a trade route to the Great Eastern Highways. It was 300 miles north of Jerusalem. It was called Queen of the East, or Antioch the Beautiful. You see, it was embellished with everything that Roman wealth, that Greek asceticism, and that the luxury from the Orient could provide. The worship of Ashtaroth was accompanied with immoral indulgence and unbelievable indecency. Because it was a melting pot and a trade city, there was all kinds of sexual promiscuity, prostitution, the stuff that you generally find where you have that kind of a scene. You see, that kind of a setting. And here we find these men, unnamed men, going into this particular stronghold, into this particular perverse city. And it becomes, as you read on, the birthplace of the name. Well, they were first, verse 26 says, they were first called Christians in Antioch. You see, it becomes the center of an organized effort to spread the gospel into the world. Now, why would God send this missionary band to such a perverse and immoral place? Surely there were cities that could have been more easily reached. There were probably people in certain cities who were more open to the message of the gospel, perhaps a little kinder, especially when it comes to being a training ground for these relatively young believers. So why? Well, let me ask you this. Why not? I mean, who needs to hear the gospel more than a bunch of perverted, immoral, indecent pagans? Sometimes you say, why am I working around these people, man? They're so godless, so perverted, so goofed up. Hey, that's why God's got you there. You're there because they need to hear. They need to see Jesus. You see, the deal is if these disciples cruised into Antioch, a city that is so messed up and perverted and godless, you see, it would be a clear demonstration to everyone that the gospel could succeed anywhere. Sort of like the song, you remember the song, the lyric in it, New York, New York. If I can make it there, I'll make it anywhere, right? Hey, if the gospel, if we can have an impact there in Antioch, they're saying, then we can make it anywhere. What do you think it would take to make an impact in that same kind of city today? Or let me make it more personal and local. What do you think? If you don't like some of the stuff that's going on in the desert, I pop on Facebook, everybody's frustrated with the crime in Victorville and the crime here and the crime there and the drugs there and the murders and the rapes. I got great news for you. You're here, we're here in this time and this season for the very purpose of reaching those people who are precious to Jesus Christ. He didn't die for perfect, sinless people, did he? He came for sinners. You live maybe next to some people that are undesirable. Hey, great. Remember, you weren't desirable at one time. You weren't always a Christian. Remember how you used to behave? Remember what you used to do? Yeah, but I wasn't that bad. No, maybe because you hadn't gone that long. But guess what? God saved you, didn't he? And when he saved you, the process of changing you. Well, you're still changing, but God's done a great thing in your life. Do you know that there are so many people here in our cities, in this community, that need to hear the message of Jesus Christ? And He can redeem them, you see, just like He did you. And He's brought them to us for that very purpose. Well, how do we reach them, Pastor? What do we do? I look at the ingredients that we see here in our text before us and what's going on here with these people, and you know what? It's the same thing. First of all, they need to hear a clear message of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Do you know the gospel? Do you know it clearly? Or is it some kind of, well, you know, you could come and you could just add to your life and a little better life and just add, you know, the extra of Jesus, you know, throw that in, you know, with all the other good things that you're doing. No, that's not the message of the gospel. First of all, you're a sinner who desperately needs a Savior. You can't fix yourself or save yourself. Jesus Christ died on the cross. The perfect, sinless Son of God shed His blood, taking the wrath that you and I deserve in our place. He hung there, and He bled, and He died. You know what? The one thing about one of my goals before the Lord takes me home is to get you guys to know that message that is so clear. He died on that cross for you. Don't ever forget it. You didn't save yourself. You can't save yourself. He's not an add-on. He must be your Lord, you see, as well as your Savior. He rose again from the dead on the third day to demonstrate that His sacrifice was sufficient to give you the power. The power, you see, that raised Him from the grave is available to you and me to walk in victory, to live a life that is holy and godly, to prove that we are accepted by Him because of the sacrifice that was received by the Father. The power of God to change your life. So we have to have a clear message of the gospel. Then we need to be those witnesses that demonstrate the characteristics that Jesus, you see, urged us to demonstrate. Again, the gospel isn't something that is only said. It certainly is said, but it has to be shown. You see, if we are going to reach people with the message of the gospel, they need to hear and they need to see what it looks like. And if we're going to do that and do it effectively, then there's some things that are of a necessity for us to be impactful, you see. I had a woman a few weeks ago approach me about, well, you know what, we need to know how to share the gospel and just, you know, what is it that we need to do to do a better job of witnessing? Well, I'm going to answer that. Because these we're doing. What is necessary? Well, I want to consider three things in our time together this morning. The first necessity is to be a fisher of men. That's what these guys were doing. They're out from Cyrene and Cyprus, and they cruise into Antioch, and what do? Well, they didn't look for a lake because they weren't fishing for fish. They looked for men, and women, and people to share the message with. Jesus said the word to be fishers of men. Now, I'm not a fisherman in any sense of the word. The very thought of getting up early in the morning and standing, you know, on a pier or by a lake or sitting in a boat and just waiting for something to happen it doesn't have a lot of appeal to me. But I have friends who are fishermen, And I had a good friend, Gary Hill, whose father, Mr. Hill, I knew him as. I was a young boy at the time. And they were from Oklahoma, moved to Rialto, California. And he used to go fishing, deep sea fishing. We would go. I got invited along, having never gone fishing. I thought, well, I'll tag along. I don't know what this thing fishing is. I imagined when I was a young man that this would, you just throw the pole in and boom, you pull out fish and then you get your limit and go home. I mean, that was my idea of fishing and just stand around and, pull fish in. Well, one of the things that he says, when he invited me to go, I said, yeah, I'll go. Okay, well, we're leaving at 4 in the morning. What? 4 in the morning? Yeah, we're going to go to Oceanside. And we're going to fish off the pier. We leave at 4 in the morning so we can catch fish. I'm already going, why did I say yes? But I'd watch Gary and I'd watch his dad and what it takes to be a good fisherman. You see, not only do you have to get up early and take a little drive, it takes some effort, you see, so that you can get there, when the fishing time is prime. They also, unlike me, they were heading out with expectation of catching something. I didn't know what I was going to catch. I thought I might catch a cold from not getting enough sleep. But you see, they expected, oh yeah, I'm kind of tired and not really excited about doing this, but so what do you do? So what's it like? So they're telling me, and I'm starting to kind of get a little bit of excitement going on about this thing, when I finally get there. But when we arrive at the pier, then guess what? It takes patience. And it takes some skill. I mean, baiting the hook and then hooking up the hook. I mean, I don't know. There's these special knots that you do and the way that you do it. And I don't know. And the way you're supposed to put the weight and where you're supposed to put the weight when you're deep sea fishing, it's different than when you're doing other kinds. And I didn't like it, actually, myself. I mean, it was all right. It was, we ate lunch at McDonald's, I think. And so that was my favorite part of the whole thing. But you see, if you're going to fish, you realize that while you have to have some kind of expectation and anticipation, guess what? It doesn't always work out where you catch your limit. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. But you see, if you're going to be a real fisherman, you got to get beyond all that stuff. You see, you just got to be faithful to go out and throw out the bait, and you gotta know when the fish, what they're biting on, where they are, that kind of a thing. That's the same thing it is when it comes to fishing for men. May not always be a great response. A lot of people may just kind of reject you and turn you off and, just say, hey, you know what, just keep it to yourself. But listen, that shouldn't stop us from going. You see, you got to go, if you're going to catch fish, to where the fish are. You got to go where men, where women, where people gather in order to share the message of the gospel. And listen, a good fisherman, when neither Gary nor his dad, when we got to Oceanside, neither one of them jumped off the pier into the water and started chasing the fish around, trying to catch them like that. That's never a good thing to do. Try to grab the fish and here's my bait right here. Come here, stupid fish. We shouldn't do that either. Sometimes we do though. Come here. You don't believe in Jesus? Here, let me shove Jesus down your throat. We're running around beating them to try and catch them. You see, what do you do? What's the bait do? Well, you toss in something that smells good that to them, that looks good, that's appetizing, you see. Something that attracts the fish. Let me ask you a question. Is your attitude and are your actions attracting people to Jesus. Because that's key. We need to find out what interests non-Christians and friends and concentrate on that. With Jesus, you remember the woman at the well in John's Gospel, chapter 4. She came to get water, so he started a dialogue. He talked about water. He talked about thirst, something she related to, something she connected with, and he began to share the gospel with her. With Philip, it was the Ethiopian eunuch who was reading, and he had a question about the section there in the text in the Bible that he was reading, and he asked, what's this talking about? And, of course, Philip explained to him and preached to him Jesus. We need to be those who are alert and able to take advantage of the opportunities the Lord will bring our way. We're called to preach and not protect the good news. And when we follow Christ, we will fish for men because that's what he did. We need to do it the way he did it. C.H. Spurgeon said, "True conversion is most fully displayed when it leads converts to seek the conversion of others." We often think that following Christ is all about praying and reading the Word and having quiet time. And while it does include each one of those things, precious saints, it also means fishing for men. Thomas Guthrie, a Bible commentator, said, "I love your meetings for prayer. You cannot have too many of them. But I would rather see a man who has been saved from the gulf below, casting lifelines to others, struggling in the turbulence of death, than on his knees on that rock, thanking God for his own deliverance. I believe God will accept action for others as the highest possible expression of gratitude that a saved soul can offer." Sometimes we just sit around and thank God for our salvation. But listen, that ought to motivate us to reach out to others if it's done properly. So we're fishers of men. The second essential feature there that we see, or necessity, that should characterize our lives is that of salt. Jesus said, "You are the salt of the earth." These men are going out and Antioch is a perverse city. Its decay morally is something that it has a reputation for, the kind of perversity and the things that are going on there. But you see, salt, we are the salt of the earth. You see, we are to be that which arrests decay by preaching the gospel. Jesus says you're the salt of the earth. If the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled by men. What does that mean? Well, probably the first thing that comes to mind when you think of salt is what? It makes you what? That's right, it makes you thirsty. My wife loves popcorn. I love popcorn. My daughter loves popcorn. But you know what? And when you go into the theaters, you buy the popcorn and you pay exorbitant prices, and they know that if you're going to have a popcorn, guess what else you're going to have? They're going to sell you two things that you're going to buy almost with certainty when you get into that theater. Popcorn and a drink, and they're priced ridiculously. Because one, you see, brings about the other. Salted popcorn triggers thirst. Now think of that in light of Revelation chapter 21, verse 6. We read there, "It is done. I am the Alpha," Jesus speaking, "and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To him who is thirsty, I will give to drink without cost from the spring of the water of life." John also wrote in Revelation 22:17, "The Spirit and the bride say, 'Come.' Let him who hears say, 'Come.' Whoever is thirsty, let him come. And whoever wishes, let him come and take the free gift of the water of life." Jesus is implying that people are thirsty. The old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Well, that's true. But if a horse is thirsty, guess what? There's no problem. He's ready to get his mouth down into that water trough. Our job as Christians is to be the salt in the world. We are to make, by the way that we live, we are to make people thirsty for God. Then we are to empty that salt shaker. Again, as I said in the opening, a salt which is still in the shaker is ineffective. Yes, it has potential for good in that shaker. But until you shake it out, it doesn't really have any impact on your food. It doesn't enhance its flavor. It must be shaken. You see, our job is to penetrate society with the message of Christ. All too often our problem is that where we're trapped inside the container and we want to stay in a container together just among holy, godly people. That's a holy huddle. That's what I want. I want a Christian school. I want a Christian home. I want a Christian neighborhood. I want a Christian. Can I go where there's Christians living? And we want to kind of isolate. We have that propensity. And God's saying, no, don't do that. You see, we need to quit clinging to other Christians as kind of an exclusive fellowship and move into this place of isolation. That's not God's plan, you see. That was not how Jesus lived. In fact, it was said of him in Luke's Gospel, chapter 15 and verse 1. It says, now the tax collectors and sinners were all gathering around Jesus to hear him. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law muttered, this man welcomes sinners and eats with them. That's the reputation he had. Guess who he hangs out with? He hangs out with sinners. Listen, don't overlook the significance of the word in Christ's commission to us when he said, go into all the world and preach the good news to all creation. That doesn't sound like isolation to me. It doesn't sound like people that are out of touch. You see, we need to be those that are in touch and having our impact. You see, the impact that Christ would desire from us in his design. Salt is good, Jesus said, but if it loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is fit neither for the soil nor for the manure pile. It is thrown out. He who has ears to hear, let him hear, in Luke 14. There must be a redeeming difference in the life of the witness of Jesus Christ. A mild dose, precious saints, of religion does nothing to help. It's Christ's life in us that brings about that personal purity and holiness is where power exists. We are to be in the world, but not of the world. So we must spread into the world while remaining distinctively different from the men and women around us. You see, if we are not in contact with, if we are not connected with the world, if we retreat into the safety of some warm but isolated Christian kind of commune thing, we become modern-day hermits. We need to be mixed with the world in order to create the thirst for God and his word among the people with whom we come in contact. So we are to be fishers of men, we are to be salt, and then thirdly and finally, we are to be light. Matthew's Gospel, chapter 5, verse 14. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before men, that they may see your good deeds and your Father in heaven. The light of the world is to be dispersed into the world by our lives and our message. Jesus spoke of our lives when he said, men ought to see our good deeds that they might do what? Glorify the Father which is in heaven. Paul referred to our message when he wrote in 2 Corinthians 4. He says, the God of this age has blinded the minds of unbelievers so that they cannot see the light of the gospel of the glory of Christ, who is the image of God. For we do not preach ourselves, but Jesus Christ as Lord, and ourselves as your servants for Jesus' sake. For God, who said, let light shine out of the darkness, made his light shine in our hearts to give us the light of the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Christ. You see, that's what we're here to do on planet Earth. But you might be saying, but what can I do? I'm nobody. I mean, if I had a few mil or, some kind of a notable or a influential position or great talents, maybe then somebody would listen to me. But that's not the issue. Listen, don't worry about the size of your bank account or how much power or prestige you have. It's all about simply letting Jesus Christ show himself through your life. You see, that's all he wants. Just show him Jesus. Just let him see what he looks like and how he sounds and how he acts and what the priorities and what he cares about and what gets him all fired up and his eyes light up. Oh, what is it? You see, are they seeing Jesus? Is that what gets you excited and stirred up? Is that what brings the passion to your voice? Oh, talk about Jesus. Let's talk. I love him. He's awesome. He's amazing. He's so faithful. And what Christ has done for me has been so wonderful. And I'm looking forward to that day when he comes to take me to glory with him. You see, I'm sure this band of believers here mentioned shined as lights. And as they did, people were radically impacted. God wants to do the same thing with us. We're the salt. We're the light. We're to be fishers of men. And it doesn't take a giant bank account or giant knowledge or any of that. You know that. Look, think of the picture. Let's look at salt again. A little salt goes a long ways, doesn't it? Doesn't take a giant amount of salt to have an impact on your food. In fact, have you ever put a little too much salt in? You didn't pour the whole thing in, but you put in, and then you put in a little, and then the next thing you know, you have too much. The salt, the effectiveness of it isn't indicated by its size or amount. Just a touch can affect an entire dish. That's the way it is with us as Christians in this world. You say, what can I do? I'm just one person. Let me remind you that the Apostle Paul and his two companions, Luke and Aristarchus, were apparently the only Christians on a boat with 276 people that we will get to in Acts chapter 27. And that's a ratio of nearly 100 to 1. When they first got on that boat, they were despised. But by the end of the voyage, everyone on that boat, their attitudes changed radically and completely. In fact, the presence of these three Christians, as we will see, saved the lives of everyone else. Listen, even if we only make up 1% of our culture, there's power in the presence of Christians that permeates society and sets into play and place the grace of God. I think of William Wilberforce, a powerful statesman who almost single-handedly championed the abolition of slave trading in the British Empire. He is living proof of this very fact. He was dwarfed by disease. He didn't appear to be a person who could accomplish much. But here's what a biographer by the name of James Boswell wrote about Wilberforce after listening to one of his speeches. He said this, and I quote, "I saw a shrimp mount the table, but as I listened, he grew and he grew until the shrimp became a whale." He had an impact. Yeah, not much to look at, not very impressive initially, but as God moved, as he stood, as he spoke and sought to live for God's glory, he became a giant of a man who we read about to this day, no matter of his infirmities. You see, you may have certain limits. You may have certain inabilities. Listen, you take your life and you give it to Christ, and you commit to saying, Lord, I want to be that salt. I want to be that light. I want to be a fisher of men. I want to see happen in our city, in our community, what's happened here among these people where many believed in Jesus Christ. I want to see this place changed with the message of the gospel. I want to see the power of God move here in a mighty way. Rather than sit and apathetically go, oh, well, we're all going to hell in a handbasket, and all those people, and the economy's shot, and the people are idiots, and the government doesn't know what they're doing, and you got Trump on the one hand, and you got, this Bernie on the other, and you got Hillary. Oh, wow, we're really in a bad place. We might as well just throw in the towel. Really? So where's your hope then? Hillary, Trump, or Bernie? Are you kidding me? No wonder you're depressed. No wonder you're apathetic, going, nothing I can do. No wonder you feel like nothing's ever going to change. Listen, Jesus Christ changes lives. He always has. He still does, and he will. Amen. And he wants to. Question. Can he use you? Will you step up? Yeah, but I'm not very big. Little salt. Just a little salt. You just get out there and you do what Jesus has called you to do. You seek to bring him glory. You see, a little salt makes its presence felt. I mean, you've had that where you've had a cut. You ever had a cut on your hand, and then you reach into the potato chip bag or the Frito bag, and you got a little slice that you forgot about. When you reach into that Frito bag or that potato chip bag with that salt on it, suddenly, ow, that hurts. Little teeny bit of salt has an impact, can make its presence felt. Are you making his presence felt? Don't throw your hands up and say, and go, forget it, it's hopeless. No, throw your hands up and say, use me, Jesus. I surrender to you. Glorify yourself in me, Jesus. My hope for this community, my hope for this city, you see, my hope for my family, for our country is in Jesus Christ. We need to step up. Scattered? Don't sit down and mourn your condition. Step up and get busy and bring God's revelation to those who are in desperation. And you watch. I would love, wouldn't it be great if right here from this church, God would start a work and do a work so amazing that this whole desert would be impacted? I believe he wants to do it. Here's the question. Will you step into it? Scatter? Step up. Let's get moving. Let's pray. Father, we thank you, Lord, for your word. And Lord, I thank you for these precious saints here. Lord, thank you for what you've done. Thank you for what you're doing. And God, we are so excited about what you are going to do. If we will simply, Lord, the call here is for us simply to step up, for us to Lord, do what we can. And we can't do everything. None of us, Lord, can do everything. But Lord, we can have an impact where you placed us. May we be that salt. May we be those who shine the light in the life of Jesus Christ. May we be the fisher of men and women reaching out and going where they are and not trying to shove something down their throat, Lord, but may we be those who because of our attitude and our activity and our speech, people find the attraction because they sense the love and compassion of Jesus Christ in us, Lord. God, do a work in our own hearts by your Spirit. Lord, kindle a flame, Lord, in our hearts, a passion for those that are lost. And Lord, may our hope continue to be focused in you, Lord. And Lord, I pray today if there's any here that have not yet given their lives to you, Lord, that you would draw them, that they would not walk out of these doors today, continuing the course that they're on, Lord, that they might know today that you love them. And Lord, that you want to take them and pull them out of the slavery and the addiction of sin. And Lord, give them the power to change what they can't change in and of themselves through a relationship with the one who died on the cross in their place, Jesus Christ. Lord, draw those, if they've come today, that